You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.
1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions. With the crack of the bat, there we are. We are off on another episode in our adventure that's called the Detroit City of Champions podcast, and highlighting the three books that author Charles Avison wrote. And we are here in the lair, in the pen, in the
on
den.
Location, in Charles Avison's place.
The desk where we're in the room
Detroit,
where it happened.
Yep.
I wanted to be in the room where it happened. And here we are.
Yeah, spent a lot of time in here working, writing, and now we're actually telling the story.
Yeah. So we're moving around, finding different homes for the podcast, different places to be, different stuff to do. And so we're like, Charles is like, come on up to my apartment. And I'm like, okay.
On location. So they call it on location from
because
from where it all happened.
We kind of took a break from the Red Wings because we were celebrating Champions Day, and we recorded down at the museum, which was a ride.
That was cool. The museum was great.
And then just get right up on the mic too. But because we're different microphones, so we got to figure out how we're doing.
Yeah.
But then there was a cool thing. Bill Kabuta from
that was cool,
PBS
yeah.
and One Detroit came down and shot some footage, and he heard about the story, and he's like, how doesn't more people know about that? I go, that's what we've been asking ourselves over and over. So he shot this pretty cool little 10-minute feature.
Yeah.
And kind of focused on the plaque and then the overall story.
To be honest, he shot it was probably 8 hours worth of footage, man. He was here in my apartment for 4 hours. And, he got quite a few different spots that he filmed me in.
Yeah.
But it was crazy because I couldn't believe, I was like, how are you going to condense this all down into 9 or whatever minutes?
Yeah, it was like
and
10,
he did.
10,
I was like, geez,
it was a good story. It was a good little story. So that was fun. So people, and a bunch of people found us through that. So we appreciate the people that found us because of the PBS piece. So thanks to PBS for shining a light on the story that we've been trying to shine the light on.
Yeah, and we can share the link. We'll maybe put the link and we'll embed it in the video or something.
Yeah.
People need to see the PBS thing. I guess I could have shared it on Facebook or something.
We will. We'll share that. That'll be on Facebook and everything too. But follow us. That's the new thing. Podcast. You don't subscribe to podcasts anymore. You follow them.
Yeah, and YouTube. We have a YouTube show. So
you subscribe to YouTube.
Yeah, subscribe to YouTube. Today's our first episode. We're actually broadcasting live on Facebook. I'm sorry, YouTube.
Yeah. We've only been streaming on Facebook, and now we're streaming onto the YouTube.
So if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you actually get the alert that says that that we're
going live
on.
But it's kind of cool. So thanks to everybody who's joins us for this party as we do it. We really appreciate you. That if you are listening and you haven't followed or subscribed so far, please do so. And then we're unfolding the story. So when we last left the Red Wings, we were talking about the hitless wonders because the season started out like rocky.
Horribly.
Yeah. And the pressure was on because they lost to that's why I love to tell this, to really spend some time on all the different segments. Yeah.
Because prior to the season, as we mentioned, the Red Wings had lost to their minor league team, the Detroit Olympics. So they lost to their minor league team.
We might field the darn minor league team.
Exactly. So Adams, they spent a bunch of money on these guys. They bring in Sid Howe and Scotty Bowman,
right?
And they bring in Heck Kilrea, they sign him. They're bringing in all these guys, and they trade for Marty Berry, who's one of the best centers in the league. They trade their lone all-star to get Marty Berry, so they're assembling what they think is sort of an all-star squad, and then they go and they lose to the minor leaguers in a 3-game series prior to the season. So Adams has got to be like, what is going on? He knows he's not going to use the minor leaguers for the season, but he knows also that, it's not a great way to start your year is to lose your minor leaguers. And so then, of course, he follows up the loss of the minor leaguers with a horrible start to the season where they're like, as we walked through last episode, It's like tie game, loss, tie game, loss. There's like their fifth, sixth game of the season. They get their first win, and then it's like tie, loss. And it's just like it's just not. It seemed like it was. They were called in at that point. The newspapers are calling them the hitless wonders. And then it was going into the Boston game. Which I think was game 10 or whatever. I don't know. So it was like the 9th or 10th game of the year, something like this. And anyways, so the newspaper reporters, as we detailed in the last episode, the newspaper reporters go to the game and they're prepared to write this story about how the Red Wings are like, what's wrong with the Red Wings? And by this point, the newspapers were openly calling them the hitless wonders because they just could not seem to score. And then that's what we talked about in the last episode, the article where he said, the newspaper reporter actually said, we went to Olympia to conduct, our questions on our mind was, what's wrong with the Red Wings? And so they went to the game with that predisposed, like that was all, they were prepared to go and say, what's wrong with the Red Wings?
Right.
But by the end of that game, they were like, there's nothing wrong with them because they beat Boston. And it was like the score, I think, was 2-1. But that game is when they clicked, and anybody that was watching could tell that they clicked.
Yeah,
because Boston was a great team, and they had some of the best players in the NHL. In fact, that was the team that Cooney Weiland, the All-Star, that they traded him to the Boston, and that's where they got Marty Berry from. And so this game, that's the newspaper reporter actually said, like, this is the team. This is an all-star squad, and they played like it tonight. And what's even interesting, we were talking about it on the last episode, is on that game they only drew 4,000 fans, whereas the day before the Olympics in the same stadium playing a minor league game, they had drawn 10,000
people compared to 4,000. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what I mean. Like then
step it up, lads.
Exactly. But then
we got to keep paying the electric bill.
Yeah, and and then as the next couple games unfolded, they started to win. They really started to click, and then the fans, they started we walked through the fan attendance, how it increased. It went to like 6,000 fans, 8,000 fans, and then the interesting thing was,
what was Olympia capacity?
13,000.
Okay,
yeah. So anyways, 14,000. Yeah.
Right.
So anyways, they could squeeze like 14,000
standing rooms.
Yeah. So anyways,
sorry.
No, you're good. So anyways, the great point was game 13. This is where we sort of left off.
Mm-hmm.
Was game 13 because the Red Wings, they were winning games in that, and they moved. So it was December 15th. That was like we really tried to emphasize that day in the last episodes where we left off.
Yeah,
because on that day, it was the day, like, spoiler alert, this is the day that the Lions won their NFL championship game. And then the Red Wings move into first place. And also Joe Louis is declared the most outstanding athlete of 1935. And so anybody that opens the newspaper on December 16th, they see, and that was actually that's why I showed the cover. We actually had a graphic on the screen for the last episode because that's why I use this newspaper, because it says right on the cover, Lions win title on speed and judgment. Yeah. And so like that was like the headline of that sports page. There it is, yeah. And then right below it says Wings move into first place. Joe Louis wins outstanding athlete of the year. Yeah. So all three of these things are all on the same page. So anybody that opened the paper on that day, they immediately know that of course they all knew the Tigers had won the World Series just a couple months before this, and so now they're like, Tigers, Lions. And the Red Wings are in first place, and we have Joe Louis.
Right.
That's why that day is so critical for this entire story, because that was like the fulcrum. That was like the hinge upon which the entire rest of the story would unfold. And because now they're like, and the Red Wings moved into first place. A lot of these people might never ever even watched a Red Wings game. I mean, the team had changed their name 3 times in 5 years. There's a rumor that Jack Adams was trading potatoes for tickets. It was like a joke around town that they were trading potatoes to get people into this, like free potatoes to come into the stadium or something. Yeah. The Red Wings were a third class team. They were battling for the Lions for third class in the city, really, because the Lions were so new. And so, a lot of these people had maybe never even thought about the Red Wings, but now This
Right.
is a whole nother matter because Tigers win.
Mhm.
Everybody knew about Joe Louis, of course. He's an international. And then you have, and then the Lions, they just the day before win the championship, which they might have even known about the Lions either.
Mhm.
And then Red Wings move into first place. It's all there. It's all on that same paper. And that's when this day is when the talk about could Detroit win this clean sweep of major professional sports titles. On that day is when it began. That's why we spent
That
so
would
much
be
time.
quite the
focusing.
present for the city.
Exactly. And that's where we've been with this graphic for the Santa Claus. But that's why this is like the coolest.
I'm the king of segues.
Oh, you are. This is a great segue. And that's why this little illustration is so cool because it's Santa Claus. For those that are listening, I'll describe it. It's Santa. It's an illustration of Santa Claus. And there's all these stockings. And there's 4 stockings hanging on the fireplace. One's for the Tigers, one's for the Lions, and one's for Joe Louis. And you can tell because their respective sporting equipment is in each stocking.
Right. There's some
And then
gloves hanging
there's
there.
one
Yeah,
empty
nice.
stocking, and it says Red Wings on it, and Santa's got a trophy in his hand.
Uh-huh.
And so they're like, and he says, wonder if he'll find room to put it with the others. So that illustration captures this moment. I mean, this came out right, after a few days after, maybe a couple of weeks after this game that was.
So the city was looking for it. It was.
So now that's what I'm saying.
They were looking for it.
Now all of a sudden, that's one of the most important concepts to understand with this story.
Yeah.
It's not like the Red Wings did it and everybody just goes, "Huh, that's pretty cool. We won these 3." No, like now there's like a sort of like, can they do it? And that's what started to draw the fans over to coming out to Red Wings games because now the Red Wings are playing for something far more than some obscure Canadian Cup that nobody's ever heard of. Very few had ever heard of at this point.
They're playing for the
glory of the city,
trifecta,
for the trifecta, for something that no city had really ever done like this. And so it's in the middle of the Great Depression. Like, what else you got to do? It's the middle of winter. Let's go down to Olympia. I've never seen a hockey game. Let's go check it out. And so that's when like the reporters are starting to introduce the games of hockey, the rule of hockey. And then of course, in the Red Wings don't, and this is where we're about to start today. Yeah, is the Red Wings don't disappoint because it's beginning with beginning with game 13, the Red Wings. So I believe that the game we're talking about, the December 15th game, was the 12th game, and then this is game 13. The following day, the Red Wings move into first place by beating Toronto, and of course, Bucko McDonald scores his first goal of his career. The guy with our favorite, like
shooting
our favorite guy. Yeah. So Bucko scores his first goal. And so, which adds, all these new fans that are potentially coming out. They're, they see this crazy charismatic, kid scoring his goal, these big ears, going, all happy scoring a goal. And so, so now the excitement is starting to happen. So now the Red Wings move into first place in game 13. And so I'll just blow past the next 3 games just so we can move on with the story where I want to go with this. So game 14 is a loss, game 15 is a win, game 16 is a tie. And so game 17 is where we're going to begin today. And so game 17 is a key game because they play on Christmas night in Olympia, which is like a cool, that's a great day to, where the Lions are playing on Thanksgiving, the Red Wings are playing on Christmas night. Right. And so they play in Olympia, and they play against the Blackhawks. But in this case, so this is where we have a graphic to show. Yeah, we have that highlighted what we're talking about today with those games. So that's the next graphic we have is Mike Caracas. And we've talked about Mike Caracas before. He was the goalie for the Blackhawks.
The Blackhawk one?
Yeah, there we go. So this is a photo from that Christmas night. This is an in-game action from that night. Nice. And so
can't tell who the goalie is. He's not wearing a helmet or a mask.
But that's who we're going to identify right now. That's why I want to really bring this photo up because that's Mike Caracas. Okay. And I love this photo of him. Mike. And this is the guy we talked about in a previous episode, Mike Caracas. The backstory. This is why this story would make such an incredible movie because Mike Caracas, when James Norris bought the Detroit franchise and renamed it the Red Wings, he gave Jack Adams his choice of because Norris had the Chicago Shamrocks team, which the NHL made him disband if he wanted to own the Detroit franchise, and so he gave Jack Adams, his coach and GM, first choice of any player on the Chicago Shamrocks before he disbanded the team. And Adams, there was a couple guys that Adams picked up. They're not necessarily, they're not really part of this story, but one of but what is part of the story is the guy that Adams cut, which was the goalie of the Shamrocks, Mike Caracas. So he cuts the goalie. And so imagine this. So imagine this, this story for a movie. The guy who they cut 2 years previously now in his rookie season, emerges to become the goalie of the Chicago Blackhawks, who is the number one nemesis of the Red Wings. The Red Wings have been in the Stanley Cup 2 years prior, and they had been beaten by the Blackhawks in that Stanley Cup. So the Blackhawks' first Stanley Cup championship was won by virtue of beating the Red Wings. And so we've already talked about how James Norris, the owner, hated Frederick McLaughlin. Right. They had this major rivalry. They detested each other. They were neighbors in Chicago, and McLaughlin had blocked him from owning an NHL team in Chicago. That's why he came to Detroit.
I'm gonna really throw you off with this one. It's gonna go. I'm really gonna digress.
Yeah, what's up?
And go deep. But so this rivalry between Detroit and Chicago is deep seated.
As deep as it gets.
The early 1930s, when both of these teams originated.
It goes back to 1926, when the two teams first arrived from Canada.
So Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah.
Stay with me.
Yeah, I'll follow you.
Because Cameron is wearing a Red Wings jersey. And Gordie Howe's jersey through the whole movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what's so cool. You're a kid watching that movie going,
in the mid 80s, there is no way a high school kid going to walk down the street in Chicago wearing a Red Wings jersey.
Is that where it was filmed? Chicago? Oh, okay,
or go to a ball game. And they went to a ball game. He would have got murdered.
Yeah.
They would have been throwing beers at him. They would have.
Well, I could see that.
They would have got ugly.
I grew up in Kalamazoo, and so
I
grew up in Kalamazoo, and I was a Tiger fan, and there was a lot of, because Kalamazoo is somewhat close to, it's like basically the same distance from Chicago as it is Detroit, and so there was a ton of Chicago fans even in Kalamazoo. And so it was like, I'd get into squabbles with people just in Kalamazoo. I can't even imagine how it'd be actually in Chicago.
Living there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. With the Red Wings jersey. Yeah. You gotta be tough.
In the mid 80s.
Yeah. You're like asking for a hockey flight, just walking down the street.
I know. All right. Anyway, so we digress. But a part of that legacy of tension is this Christmas night game.
Yeah. And just for people that maybe haven't heard the episode where we talked about the genesis of the Red Wings, just one last little kernel of rivalry.
I told you it was going to be a digression.
Well, this is another little digression to an episode we've already done.
Yeah.
But is that when the Portland Rosebuds and the Victoria Cougars were moved from Canada, the Portland Rosebuds became the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Victoria Cougars became the Detroit Cougars, and they both happened in this. That they were two franchises that were relocated in 1926, and so they both came into the NHL at the same time. Of course, they became the Detroit Cougars, then the Falcons, and then the Red Wings a couple of years later. But the franchises both came into the league at the exact same time. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what's so cool is that these two Midwestern franchises arrived in the league together. The two early, the owners of these teams detested each other. And then you've got, the players that were disbanded came back to play against the Wings in this season. And so the drama of that's what I mean. Like, anytime you ever hear about the 1935 Red Wings championship, the Red Wings story, this story is the most under discussed story in the history of Detroit sports. I mean, you can match it up with the Lions too. You can say that that story is the same thing. They're right neck and neck as far as underappreciated. Because whenever anybody talks about the 35 Red Wings, they just go, oh yeah, they won the championship. It was great. They talk about like some of the playoff stuff, but the rivalry dogfight, as we're going to find out, the rivalry dogfight with the Blackhawks in this year would go on all year, and it would intensify, after especially
how many times would they have faced each other in a year?
Well, we're going to get through it. I'll tell you. Wait till this is what I'm saying. Wait till you see by the end of the next couple episodes. I'm going to break down the overall sort of summary. Right. But I want to go through all of it.
All right.
But the rivalry dogfight with
this
Blackhawks team, we're going to go through it, and then we're going to do an aerial to sort of like a statistics. But the statistics, when we're all said and done, is going to really map it out. But what's important to understand is that here we go. It's not lost on the Blackhawks that the Chicago team can play spoiler for this. If think about it like this. we already talked about it. Joe Louis does his thing. The Tigers win the championship. Lions win their championship. The Red Wings are the final piece of the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And the Tigers had beaten the Cubs in the World Series, the Chicago Cubs. The Lions had to overcome the Bears to get into the championship and win. That was like their main rival. And so now, there's two Chicago teams that have been were the main obstacles for these other two teams to win. So now here's a third team, the Chicago Blackhawks.
Oh.
And so here's the case is that you don't think that the Blackhawks would love to spoil the Red Wings' chances of winning the Stanley Cup. And then like McLaughlin would like, hey, Norris, too bad you couldn't have brought the final championship home. The last thing on earth that the Blackhawks would want is for the Red Wings to beat them on the way to the championship and win this City of Champions thing over the top of the Blackhawks. So that's the extra drama that's added to this particular matchup. And as we're going to find out, this intensity is going to carry on all year. So Christmas night, the Red Wings lose 2-0, 2-0. And so they lose 2-0. And Mike Caracas, this is only like his second or third game in the NHL, and he's a rookie, and he shuts out the Red Wings in this game. Yeah, so he shuts out the Red Wings in this game. And so just a real quick summary, okay? So game one, the first game of the Red Wings season, it was a 0-0 tie, 0-0 tie to the Blackhawks.
Okay.
Game number 11 was a 3-1 win over the Blackhawks. In game number 17, which is what I just talked about on Christmas night, was a 0-2 loss. Ooh. Okay. So think about this: tie, win, and loss. Season series. So they, 0-0 with the ties, and then 1-1 because they both won a game and lost a game. Oh, boy. Okay. So now we're going to progress. I just wanted to start right there. So when I'm done,
game 17.
When we get all the way to the end of this, I'm going to go over the entire season series, and that's what's going to show how remarkable this was. Okay. To see how back and forth it was, because it was all the way through. So anyway, Gavin's game 17, 0-2 loss. And so the Wings are now tied with the New York Rangers for first place for game 17. So they're still in first, but they're tied for first. All right. So we're gonna sort of expedite. Let's actually put a few notes in here to sort of expedite the timeline for this. So game 18 is so for game 18, the very next game after that, Christmas night, it's a loss to Boston. It's so the same team. Remember that we talked about at the beginning is the team that
not a lot of love for the Bruins either.
Well, true. Yeah, they're all rivals. Really, they're all rivals. Yeah. But as we talked about that game, the game where the Red Wings like turned everything around, they only drew 4,000 fans, and their minor leaguers had drawn 10,000. Well, here's that same team, just now that the Red Wings are in first place, playing against the same team, Boston, in Olympia, and now they're drawing 10,000 fans. You see what I'm saying? So now the fans are starting to show up. So that's what's even though they lost, it's key to it's key to see that. So the loss to Boston in game 18. The Red Wings are still in first, but it's a 3-way tie with the Rangers and Chicago. So Chicago has moved up to tie with the Red Wings now. So they're tied with the Red Wings in first place. So game 19. So this is a key game. So they're back in they're in Chicago, game 19. So there's a couple games later they're in Chicago, and the Red Wings win 4-2. So notice how we say tie, win, loss, win. You see what I'm saying? It's going back and forth. Right. So in this game, so it's a total brutality of a game. I could go into all these quotes, whatever, but it's a brutality of a game. The fans shower the ice with debris. I've got the quote right here.
Right. Because they're losing in Chicago.
They're losing in Chicago. The fans are showering the ice with debris. Like one of the quotes we said before, like they're throwing bottles, they're throwing all kinds of stuff. There's fights all over the ice. And then one of the kind of the interesting things that I have here is that so Ebby Goodfellow got fined $50 because of strong language that he was using in the game against the referee. And one of the cool things I actually have marked here because it was just kind of interesting is it actually has these Kroger prices. Right. Yeah. And by the way, and folks, anybody that didn't know I got this primary source guy that I made. That's the Red Wings season. It's like every newspaper article from it. But it's kind of cool because it gives a little bit of a context for the price at this time compared to like the inflationary prices that are going on now. So eggs at this time were 23 cents a dozen. Okay. 2 loaves of bread for 17 cents and 25 cents for 2 pounds of lard. It's 25 cents for 2 pounds of lard, which I don't know what lard prices are going for these days.
I haven't seen much lard on the shelves.
some people that's getting bought out.
Yeah.
It's like the shutdowns. They're buying up the lard.
They bought all the toilet paper and the lard. It all went. So $50 was pretty dear.
So yeah, that's me. I just don't know how much the lard was going for these days, but maybe we'll find out and tell about it on the next episode. So anyway, so game 20. So games 20 through 25. This is I call this like this is the Red Wings go on like a winning orgy. Okay. So like in this last game. So anyways, they go on this winning. So game 20, a 5-2 win against the Canadiens, and Marty Berry has a hat trick in this game. And this brings up an opportunity to talk about because as we talk about they're introducing the rules of the game to the fans at this time,
explaining it.
So they explain to the paper. And so this is what's cool is that I love this article because and I want to read it because this little quote, because this is an explanation to the fans about where the hat trick, the name hat trick came from.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sure there's
where did the name hat trick come
exactly. From? So, the idea of meeting hat tricks is when you score 3 goals. And so, but in this case, if you really look up Wikipedia articles or find out the definition of a hat trick, great.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm about to read to you is what they thought about a hat trick in 1936.
Right.
You see, so this is back then. This is January 6th, 1936. And so this is how they believed it and the story of where it came from. Okay. So Marty Berry today, this is written by Leo McDonald on January 6th, 1936, right out of the Detroit Times. So Marty Berry today basks in the sunlight of hockey fans as once again the Red Wings plume themselves undisputed leaders in the National Hockey League, the American division of the National Hockey League. Berry scored the hat trick in Olympia last night, an achievement that played more than a prominent part in Detroit's 5-2 victory over the Canadiens. As you have heard, perhaps a player who scores 3 goals in one hockey game has accomplished the hat trick. The trick name is supposed to have originated in Scotland, where once a haberdasher offered a hat free to the man who scored 3 goals in a soccer game.
Oh.
Hockey got it from soccer. So that's what the prevailing belief. I don't even know. I didn't even look it up before this. Like what we define as a hat trick, but that's how they defined it. I don't know if that's the same legend.
Haberdasher in Scotland.
Yeah, haberdasher.
Hat
maker.
No, you got to call him a haberdasher.
Haberdasher is a way cooler name than hat maker. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. It was kind of cool to bring out. So So game 20 win. What was the score of that? 5-2 win. We already said that in the article. And so game 21. Is a 2-1 win over New York Rangers. Like I say, this is like I call this like the orgy of victory because we're just going through wins.
Yeah.
But what's cool about this story about game 21?
Is that the title of this episode? Orgy of victories?
I don't think it is, but maybe we should change it. Yeah,
it might be now.
The orgy of victory.
That'll get some clicks.
That's some clicks. Yeah, people are typing an orgy. Really going. This wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
I apologize if we clickbaited you with that.
Yeah,
one.
They're like, the orgy, and then like it's like the large, and then
victory.
Large print. The orgy is like victory
in hockey.
Yeah. So but what's cool about this is as the Red Wings are starting to build momentum, they're winning. At this moment, the Detroit Olympics, their minor league team, as we talked about, they have been winning dominant all year. They didn't have a lull at the beginning of the year. They were going great. They were dominating.
Okay.
But however, they were dominating up until about 4 games before the Red Wings game 21, when they had a 4-game losing streak. So the Olympics are starting to kind of going down. They're in first place still, but they're having some troubles. And the troubles stem from the fact that they're incredibly shorthanded. They've had a bunch of injuries. They're just playing on a skeleton crew, and they're just having a tough time. And this is what's interesting, and it shows the mentality of a lot of this down at this time, because Wally Kilrea, who we've already talked about, Heck's younger brother, we talked about it last episode. He's sort of quiet for most of the season, but he becomes this like he's the captain of the Olympics, and then he scores a hat trick and is called up. Or he gets called up to the Red Wings, and that's when the Red Wings start winning. So he's not a big scorer or anything like this, but he's like a guy. He's one of these, they call him like a glue guy, who's just like does kind of everything and helps the team win. And so, Wally Kilrea, I just thought this was absolutely fascinating. So the Olympics are shorthanded, And usually what happens is that the major league, the minor league club will send a player up to help out the major league club. But in this case, the major league club the Red Wings sent Wally Kilrea down to the Olympics for one game just to help the Olympics get through this schedule and keep on winning.
Yeah.
And so he goes down there, and the team tied. He didn't win, but he scored a goal and an assist to help them tie. And then he brought him back up after one game. So they sent him down to help out the minor league team. And what's interesting is that it kind of shows you, like Jack Adams could have been like, who cares? It's the minor league team. We'd rather have Wally up here with the majors because we don't care. Who cares about the minor league team? But this reveals a little bit of insight about the way they thought, because they wanted the minor league team to be good. They wanted them to win, because if they're winning, then all the players that they need to call up already have that winning mentality. They're already engaged in like a playoff battles and these rivalry fights with this, and so they're already in that mentality when they get called up. And so that's what I mean. Like a lot of times the major sports today, the minor league teams, who cares? Who cares if they win or lost? And does that mean does anybody know what Toledo's score was last week?
Is that where our team is?
That's for Toledo? AAA, yeah. But they're not playing right now because their seasons, the minor league season starts late this year. But at any point during like a Detroit Tigers season, does anybody know how the minor league teams are playing, whether they're good or bad?
No.
That's what I'm saying. Like there's a winning ethos that is not just.
But it's Star Wars night, and you get. Hot dog shaped like lightsabers.
That's what I mean. Well, we could go into the gimmick element of the game, and we could spend episodes talking about that. But what I'm saying though is that this is like developing a winning culture for an organization. It's winning is not a light switch to be turned on and off. You can't be like, well, we don't care what happens to the minor league team, win or lose, and then they come to the majors like, now you're expected to be a winner and help us win a championship. It doesn't work like that. If you got it, like you develop that winning culture in the minor leagues with these players, and then you build that expectation through the entire organization all the way to the until they get to the majors. So like, they've like in the minors, they're like expected to win. They're engaged with winning, and then they get up to the majors and they expect the same culture when they get there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they don't get up there and like all of a sudden they're like, oh, hey, now you got to win, kid. They're switch the light on. Like, now you're expected to win. No, that's what I love about this, that they sent Wally down to the minors just to help them out, to keep them winning, the momentum, keep them in first place, help them get through this tough part of their schedule with, when they're shorthanded. And then Wally is returned back to the majors.
Right.
So that's it. So that's like, I just think that's just such a great component of the story.
Oh, it is.
So game 21, the Wings win, and then the Olympics, go on to keep on winning. They're so both teams at this point are winning. They're going back to keeping on winning. So game 22, 6-0 win over the Maroons in front of 11,764 fans.
Numbers going up, almost filled the house.
Game 23 versus Chicago, 3-4 loss. So you see the pattern forming here, right? Tie to start the season. Win, loss, win. The season series is going back and forth, so it's an even series at this point, right? And so that's game 23. They lose to Chicago, and game 24 is a 4-0. They shut out the Toronto Maple Leafs 4-0, and that game is in front of 13,970 fans.
Wow, that's filling the house there.
It breaks the attendance record.
Perfect.
It sets the all-time attendance record at Olympia Stadium.
Perfect.
They had never drawn that many fans before, and bam, here we are, game 24 of the 1935 season. It shows, like I say, just a few games before.
The city is pumped. 4,000 people.
It starts at 4, and then here we are, 10 games later, and there's 13,970.
That's when was the last time the Tigers were in the World Series?
I think it was 2012.
Yeah. The year before they had like the worst record.
Yeah,
it was like
they had the 2006 where they went to the World Series, and then a few years before that they were like 2003. You might be thinking about that.
Yeah, no, all right.
2003, they had like they almost set the worst record ever. They had the worst American League record, but they almost.
And then 2004 was crap too, and then. That it was like because we got some tickets. So it was like a bunch of guys from high school. We got tickets for like the not opening day, but it was the first 2-3 weeks of the season, and it's like we had the suite, so it's like the one guy, his company had a suite, and they're like, oh, here's all the tickets, and so we all went, and it was just like it was a party, right?
Yeah,
and then that was because they suck hard, well, and then they started getting better and better and better, and it's like later in the season, it's like
tickets,
oh yeah. But
that's what I'm saying.
I kind of like when the teams are lagging a little bit.
My friend says that too.
Tickets.
My friend Kevin Bush says the same thing. I actually quoted him in my first book saying that. I quoted him in the book. He said, the losing weren't so bad because it was so much easier to get tickets.
Right.
And I actually quoted him in my first book saying that.
That's the cheap Jamie coming out.
Yeah, but there is an element like this. But I'm just saying. But overall, like if you're talking about winning, there's the fun side of it. The team's not doing well. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's also something to be said about a team winning.
There's winning
fun that comes with that. That's fun too. It's
culture. Yeah. It's because I teach high school, right?
Yeah.
And there's culture in high school. If you got if all your teams in your school suck,
it's a morale killer. You're a loser.
When you have winning teams at your school, even if it's a cross country team or the gymnastics team, it bolsters.
Absolutely,
it really does.
No, because it's
important.
Well, it is, and it's like sports are sort of
you're not first, you're last.
Yeah, there's that
for sure. Not quite that, but
the idea, sports in America, the development of sport, the evolution of sports, like it really is this idea of like it's almost like you can have a war with it's like rivalries with other cities, rivalries with other schools, and it's a chance to get in, to engage with something like that, which is somewhat constructive. It's not like back up until a couple hundred years ago, people might be out with baseball bats or swords. That was how they were demonstrated that sort of rivalry element. This is sort of a constructive rivalry instead of like saying, who's going to go and kill the other guy or something. So, this is it's that anyways. So what I wanted to talk about, read a quote from quick here. Is that the game in which they had 13,970. I wanted to read you an article by Bob Murphy, who is Detroit Times writer. All these Detroit Times writers are my favorite writers. I can't even pick which ones are better or not. Leo McDonald, Bob Murphy, Bud Shaver. These are like my three favorite guys, probably of all the books, which I quote probably the most often. And so Bob Murphy writes this article, and I got to read this. This like quote is actually like tattooed in my brain. Okay. Like when I'm doing like a pitch, like selling books or whatever like this, like sometimes this elements of this quote will actually come out. So I can't miss the chance to actually read the full quote to the listeners and viewers. So this is the game. The reminder: the Red Wings win this game 4-0 in front of 13,970 fans. Yes, and so it breaks the all-time record at Olympia. And this is the article that comes out the next day. Tell me this is not like the greatest hype article ever. Right. Okay. So Red Wolves on the prowl. That rightfully enough could be the tag, the Detroit's 4-0 victory over the once proud and haughty Toronto Maple Leafs last night at Olympia. They were angry, greedy wolves and that gang the opposition and skim the ice. I say that's what it's all burned up. And skim the ice with burning hot steel. It all brought Detroit near to the Grand Slam of the world of the Grand Slam in sports. The signs in that's what's tough about reading these old articles because they get all jumbled here. So so the same they're right here. The same indefinable something which rode with the world champion Tigers, the world champion Lions, and the uncrowned world champion Joe Louis propelled the strong legs and stout hearts of Jack Adams' Red Wolves.
They're already talking about they're already grouping.
They're talking about City of Champions. Yes. Yeah. More than 14,000 fans occupying every seat, as well as every available inch of standing room, gazed down on the ice drama being unfurled below. Bodies collided as if this is like the header of the article or the next section. Wage fierce battle. Bodies collided as if shot from springs of steel. There were scrambles in front of the nets, violent bumpings along the boards, a burst of speed, and then the spilled form of an athlete sliding across the white ice on his face. The 14,000 mingled screams and boos, and the giant form of Red Horner shook off the greatest share of the explosive boos. This article gets a little tough to read right here, but you get the idea from that. That's one other little nugget I want to read. This one's from Leo McDonald. The problem I was having a tough time reading is it's like crossed. It's where the line runs through on the microfilm, so it just gets tumbled up. So anyway, so this is another article. Leo McDonald. This is a little nugget from this one. This is his little hype. So
this is the next day again.
No, this is the next day. And this is two different writers from the Detroit Times talking about this game.
Oh my God, yeah. All right.
So tearing huge holes through a fragile defense. Red Wings, inspired and cyclonic, swept to victory over the Toronto Maple Leafs 4-0 in the presence of a crowd that broke a 2-year-old attendance record at Olympia last night. Jammed into the huge sports amphitheater were 13,970 paid customers, the greatest crowd to see the Red Wings since the memorable league championship playoffs 2 years ago between the same teams. By their smashing triumph, the Red Wings strengthened their lead to pull away from the New York Rangers in the torrid championship in the American Division of the National Hockey League. The Rangers were idle. So anyways, it's like they're having a competition of who can hype this team more.
Yeah.
Like,
good Lord,
tearing huge holes through the fragile defense. The Red Wings, inspired and cyclonic, swept to victory. Like the other guy, Red Wolves on the prowl.
Yeah, steel,
like the Steels. Like,
I love it.
You know what I mean?
Like
that it's these kind of articles when I was doing this book that just made it so enjoyable, because you're reading these articles and you're visualizing this, and that was their objective. That was the difference. Today we have, we can watch it for ourselves, the games on TV, and then the reporters basically just cover what happened,
right?
And then they give their take on it. But back then, a lot of the fans reading this might not have seen that game. And
there's no highlight reel.
Exactly. And so the reporters had to be those eyes and ears of the events. That's why it's a different style of journalism.
Yeah.
And so their goal. So here I am, 80 years later, putting the story together, and, they were communicating, that game through their writing to me. And that's what made me consistently more and more hooked on this story, because you're like, man, that game sounded great.
Yeah.
Red Wolves on the prowl, flashing skates of steel. Man, that sounded cool. Other articles, there's there's bottles smashing the ice and fights in the crowd. And you're going, my God, this is crazy.
And the photos are few and far between.
Well, the photos are great. I thought that,
but there's not this, just like today we're just bombarded with images.
For sure. The newspapers are a little more grainy, but they had some action shots in here too. Like that photo I showed, we showed at the beginning of this. Yeah. That's a great action shot too. I mean, this is this is the Mike Caracas. I mean, if you could, I don't know if you can zoom in on Mike Caracas's face. But like this, anybody may, get a magnifying glass out and look at his face, because Mike Caracas, the goalie of the Blackhawks in this photo, is intense. Like, I mean, he has got the jaw, the nose. I mean, he has got, like, he looks like this guy would rather get his teeth knocked out by a puck than allow a single goal. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is one of my favorite. This is actually that's why I really wanted to show this photo of this. This is one of my favorite photos in the whole book, because Caracas is so intense. Right. In these players, it captures this moment in time. But anyways, these, that's what I just love about this, though, is that their goal was to communicate just, the action and the excitement and all this to these viewers, which would in turn hook them on the sport, make them want to go watch games, and then in turn buy more newspapers, to follow, what was going on when they couldn't, or to be in, their goal was to engage the fan base and engage Detroiters with what was going on. That was their goal, because if they could engage the fans in the sport, it would make them, want to read more. Just like, anybody that's listening at home or listening to this, when one of these teams is going well, like, you just consume information.
Yeah.
All you want is like read article. It's just like anything. Like, if you're consuming politics or whatever it is, you just become a consumer of information, newspapers, video, whatever. And the same concept here is that the journalists actually had a sort of a skin in the game by saying, if we could get the fans hooked on these teams, then we're going to be in business here. And really, I think that's one of the components of journalism. I've said this since the very beginning. I think journalists now there should be like a class on 1930s journalism to show the types of colorful in like engaging, articles that they used to write. And I actually keep on my desk. Let me just get up for one quick second. Show you. I keep this on my desk.
All right. What do you got?
So
There you got, and we're here in your office, in your apartment. And it's just the wealth of playbills and programs and artwork and all things tied to the City of Champions. It's like you live this, man.
Oh, I do. I'm immersed in this.
It's like place, almost disturbing.
This is my research lab. No, this is this is my research lab. This is where I do my thing. So anyway, I keep this on my desk because this is how I try to write everything. This has been on my desk for 10 years.
Okay.
So this is
cameras up there.
So this is so Arthur Brisbane was the main editor for all of William Randolph Hearst's newspapers, including the Detroit Times. And so they were under a mandate. This was the quote that this would be on the offices of the Detroit Times. And so Arthur Brisbane, I'm going to put this a little closer camera.
Yeah.
So you can see it right there. Arthur Brisbane, I kind of made this thing.
Here, I'll hold it. You talking on the microphone.
Oh, yeah, I got a pretty good still there on it. So what it says is, there we go. I actually had a pretty good shot of it a second ago. But yeah, I had a pretty good clear of it shot.
Now we're all out of focus.
So it says, just so in case you didn't get a chance to read it. So Arthur Brisbane was the head.
Camera's been drinking.
He was the head of all of William Randolph Hearst newspapers. And it says, if you don't hit the reader right between the eyes in the first sentence of your news column, there's no need to write anymore. That was the mandate that these journalists were under when they when they began to write an article. And you can see it in the last two articles I just read, those two quotes. Those were literally the first paragraph of those two articles. Right. And you can see, like, if anybody that's got hooked on that first thing, it says if you don't hit the reader right between the eyes in the first sentence of your news column, there's no need to write anymore. And that's how I try to write. So I learned from that. You know what I mean? I learned from that concept from Arthur Brisbane, because that's like how I tried to write my books, is like every chapter, it starts out with a punch. Like if I don't grab you from the very first sentence, the very first paragraph, then there's no need to write anymore. That's how I did mine. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that the modern day journalists and writers and all this would really benefit from from an actual class about 1930s journalism and how they hook that reader on that sort of colorful style. So anyway, so this is yeah, we're getting used to the home setup.
Yeah.
So that was game 20. That was game 24.
All right.
All that happens. And so the final game that we're going to get to today is game 25, which is a victory over the New York Rangers, so it leaves the Red Wings 3 points up in the standings. So they're alone in first place. They're 3 points up. And I've just got sort of two little quotes to read us off with here.
All right.
The first one is just a brief mention. We've talked about Doug Young and the importance of Doug Young and becoming the captain of the team and everything. And how Doug Young, they gave Doug Young the captaincy just to get him to play up to that level and assume that level of stardom, which they all knew he was capable of, but he himself didn't necessarily believe. So at this point, which is the date of this is the 21st of January 1936. So they're talking about Doug Young. Is right here, it says so at full speed, the last time the Rangers were here, one of the New York Rangers, maybe it was Bill Cook or Frank Boucher, rushed the puck. At full speed, he crossed the line, pivoted, and looked to be on his way to the goal mouth. But Doug Young was too quick for him, moved over and dumped his man, as pretty a body check as one would want to see. No matter what they do, some hockey players are glorified in gobs of ink. Then there's another class that goes about its work quietly, but turn in a job as good or better. Douglas Gorley Young, the Glycan Gaucho, is one of the latter class. A quiet worker, Young does the job well, without flourish. Young always has been a good workman, but this season he is better than ever. one of the big reasons why the Red Wings are soaring in the top of the American division of the National Hockey League. So they, at this point in time, they're already singling Young out for saying this guy is doing an incredible job.
Wow.
Already as the captain of this team, his first year as captain, he's finally living up to the potential. And this is halfway through the season. This is exactly half. The second quote I want to read
because we talked a lot about him becoming captain.
We spent an entire episode on the concept.
Partially just to motivate him to do exactly what he's doing here.
Yeah, because we spent an entire episode on that component because it was critical. That was the Red Wings, for their first championship. Who was the captain of the Red Wings in their first championship? That's a really important, not only a fact, but all the elements that went into how he became captain. Right. The fact that Ebby Goodfellow had sacrificed his captaincy to get to say, Doug, you are a star, and I want you to be the captain. And that would be just incredible.
And here's it starting to shine.
Exactly. And so here he is halfway through the season. We're seeing the impact that he's making as a result of finally, after years, living up to what they all saw in him, but yet he did not potentially necessarily seen himself. So the second quote I'll read is actually this is from Jack Adams. It's like sort of a summary of the midpoint in the season. So at full strength and playing impressive hockey, the Red Wings leading the American division in the betting paddock will be favored to take the Stanley Cup champions over the Hurdles despite past performances. So they're looking like the favorites at this point. Right. That's how great they're playing. So among the new men, Hek Kilrea has in the last couple of weeks has revealed the most improvement, skating like his old self. The former Toronto Star jumped up in the scoring list. Peter Kelly, young Carrot top forward, is also showing the effects of adding big league polish with the fighting Wally Kilrea, idol of the gallery gods. You see right there, Wally Kilrea, idol of the gallery gods. So Wally Kilrea was a very low scorer, but you can see right there how key he's becoming. Gallery gods is referencing the fact that the fans in the gallery, they idol of the gallery gods. That shows that he's playing fantastic. It's not showing up on the scoring chart, but it's showing up that the fans love him. You see, and with Normie Smith turning in a splendid job in the nets, meaning the goalie Normie Smith, turning in a splendid job in the nets. The defense has been playing a consistently good hockey. Especially is this true of Ebby Goodfellow, leading scorer among the league's defensemen, and Doug Young, hard-hitting rear guardsman. So this, so that kind of summarizes. So actually, I thought that wasn't Jack Adams. That was a Leo McDonald quote. I thought it was Jack Adams. But so they're summarizing right there sort of what's going on at this point in the season, and they're going great. Yeah, they're going great, and that's the last sort of thing I want to talk about for this. For this episode, this component. So we're leaving it off at game 25, halfway through the season. The Red Wings are favorites. They're romping through the league. Everything is going fantastic.
But we got to play the Blackhawks some more.
We got to play the Blackhawks some more. and there's still a half of a season to go.
Oh my god!
And without spoiling,
because I was looking at this chart. There's a couple dips in this chart.
Exactly, and so like a for anybody that's paying attention, it's a little shaded red is what we talked about today.
Yeah.
And so you can see on this chart looking
and
ahead.
This is this line here is
that's first. So that's first place.
And how many games they're ahead of first place?
Yes, and so it's a timeline through the season.
And so that first part, they were the hitless wonders. They were not anywhere near close first place. Exactly. They were down. And now it's there's a couple of dips.
It's just a wave. That's what we're about to get.
So we're gonna break the rest of this down.
Yeah. So we're gonna have 2 more episodes. We're really gonna because those 2 dips that we're gonna end up getting to, there was they were that's where we're gonna spend. We're gonna spend.
What caused it and how they recover?
Exactly. That's what I mean. So. Everything's going right. They're the favorites to win the NHL
right now. It's game 25.
Everything's going great. Everything is moving smooth.
Santa's dropping off that trophy.
Santa's got the trophy
with the rest of them.
Yeah, he's got it all ready to go.
Stocking with the Tigers and the Lions
in
and
in any sport, you cannot polish that trophy until it's on your man. So you can't even begin to even look at it. So that's what I mean. So right now we're gonna leave off. Halfway through the season, everything's going great. You're a fan at home. You're following the Red Wings. Everything's fine. Don't worry about anything that's nothing to see here.
It's cool because it's and they mentioned Joe Louis, the uncrowned champion.
Yes.
In that article, and they got Joe Louis mentioned here in this illustration with Santa dropping off the awards.
Exactly.
I was on the phone with Joe Louis earlier this week.
Joe Louis Jr. Right?
Joe Louis Barrow. Jr. the third.
We're gonna bring him on as a guest. Yeah.
He named like Joe named like 3 of his kids Joe Louis Jr. Anyway,
yeah, we're gonna bring him on the show for the Joe because we haven't even got to Joe Louis yet. The Joe Louis story is incredible.
The family is launching a restaurant here in Detroit. It opens this week.
Really, that's cool.
Joe Louis Southern Kitchen.
Maybe that's might be kind of a cool spot to actually broadcast.
So
the Joe Louis episodes from
because Jojo, right? I was on the phone with him. Jojo is he's from New York, but there's other members of the family who's still here in the city, but he's in New York mainly. But he's going to be in town. And so we might get JoJo to sit down with us, and we might do it there. I'm not sure, but that's coming up. We're going to be and because I'm dying to hear stories from him, and
we've
get him together with Tom
on your other show on the on some of the on the other show,
the Man Cave Happy Hour,
and he had some great stories. Like he was like talking about how he was a kid, and there's like these massive people that we would are huge celebrities, and for him it was just like his dad's friends, they're just kind of these guys that his dad knew,
so but more with the Red Wings and so much more about the City of Champions story. Thanks everybody hanging out, the people that are watching live, we appreciate you. The people that watch and listen after the fact, thanks.
We got our subscribers are in double digits over on YouTube. We're trying to add it. Our next goal is triple digits. Anybody that's follling us,
tell your friends about the show.
Every single person that I had a birthday this week, and the great birthday gift would be to go over and just give us a subscribe and
there you go. Yeah,
hit the thumbs up button on the like, anything we can do. We're trying to bring this story back. We're trying to try to do something a little different for this. So.
And again, thanks to PBS. We'll put a link down.
Yeah, check the PBS link out. It's a cool little segment.
Yeah, there's
maybe we'll get Bill on a show one of these days to talk about it too. Because I think it'd be great. Maybe when we're finished talking about the Red Wings, we can get Bill on the show. He's a producer for PBS that did this segment. He did a wonderful job on this, and I want to know, because Bill, this is what's interesting, is that Jamie, you're bit by the City of Champions bug. Would you?
Totally.
Yeah, totally. Like I was, and like Tom, our buddy Tom.
Yeah,
Tom's been hooked on it for 30, 40 years, right? And maybe the viewers at home, you were watching this, you're also getting bit by the bug.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully, And so Bill Kubota, the guy that filmed this, he spent 6 hours filming this for this segment. He's been bitten by the bug.
Oh yeah.
And I want to talk to him about what his experiences is, because up until really maybe like a month ago, he had pretty much never heard of this. And I want to know, to somebody that's sort of a newbie to the being bit by that bug, like what it's. I want to talk to him about what his,
what's keeping him
what's in his mind, what's going in his mind, what's what does he think, how, what does he think about? I want to know his, because he did a lot of time interviewing me and getting all these questions out of me. I want to know what his what his perspective is and all this. And we're gonna get to your perspective on it too, Jamie, because this is but you get used to.
I just enjoy the story. I just love the rich names and the wonderful language, the Detroit history, the sports history. Because I'm not a sports guy any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But I just love Detroit, and I love Detroit history, and I love positive things about the city. And this is just an amazing positive thing about the city that's been forgotten, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It's just. I thank you for all the work you did to bring it back.
And it's such a big thing that all the teams win in the same season within a 7-month stretch of time. It's the most. It's just go back to the orgy word so we can use it in our title.
Yeah.
It's an orgy of victory. It's an orgy of championships and winning, the likes of which have never been experienced in the history of this country, perhaps in the history of the world. Because it's where's that happened a long time ago. So it doesn't change how great it was though.
It's like I didn't know the PBS thing aired, and then you told me, "Oh, dude, I sent you the link," and I never got the link. You resent it anyway. So
I'm terrible with links. I'm terrible with sharing stuff.
It's funny
with social media.
No, it's funny. The very next day, I'm like, yeah, I was on and I was in it.
You're in it.
And I did, but I was at school and I was like, nobody mentioned this to me. And I was at school and it was like Teacher Appreciation Week. And so they're like, they had bagels out for us and some coffee. And so I was grabbing a bagel and some coffees. And another teacher's like, hey, Jamie, I saw you on TV last week.
Oh, they did see you. Okay. So you did hear from somebody else.
And I was like, I go, it's, it's a really cool story. It's a podcast that I'm doing with the guy that was the main part of it. He wrote these books and he's telling me the stories. I go, it's really cool. He's like, it was cool. He's like, I saw you and I heard your voice. And I'm like, thanks. but like the
You thought
administrators,
you were talking about the podcast, but he was talking about the PBS.
he saw the PBS thing. And so like my administrators were all hanging out over there and they're like, well, Jamie, what does he talk about? I go, it's, the 1935 year in Detroit. And I just gave him the really quick synopsis. I said, the Wings, the Lions, the Tigers, 30 other championships,
33 total championships.
One,
Yeah.
Joe Louis, Walter Hagen, Gar Wood, Sukar, the horse. I go, it's an amazing story. I go, and Charles, we do a podcast and Charles is telling me the story. And I go, somebody at PBS heard about it and was enamored by the story. And they did a little feature about it on the thing. It's pretty cool. And they're like, oh, wow, that's cool. Yeah. And then they emailed me later. Hey, can you send me a link to that?
Oh, good.
So I sent them links to
so that's what I mean. So we'll put this thing out there if you want. Maybe we can put it on Facebook or something, or get some traction for it. We'll put it on our the links.
So, but it was cool. It was like people are like, but they didn't. I was like, did you know? And they're like, no, we didn't. They're like, that's amazing. I go, I know, and nobody knows.
Well, one of the cool things about the thing, it's just sort of an overview of all the stuff. Like I'm in the store that I'm in every day. Like he filmed me in the store to kind of show what my daily life is like.
Yeah.
This thing. But one of the interesting things was there's this one day where the ceiling at the store that I'm in, it's called Inspire Marketplace. It's that day that we have two different locations, one at 12 Oaks Mall, Novi, and one at
Looked like there was some water damage.
Yeah, so I'm in these stores every day. It's a basically like a year-round indoor art show.
Right.
And anybody that's listening to this and wants to stop by Inspire Marketplace and say hi, I'm in there every day. I work 7 days a week. So I'm at 12 Oaks Mall 4 or 5 days a week, and then I'm at Partridge Creek the other 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, on this particular day, the ceiling, there's a water pipe broke up in the ceiling. And so the entire, we got a call from security. It got a call from security saying there's water pouring out from underneath the store, like out of underneath the doorway into the mall and that. It's, it was ugly. And so I had to go in there and everything. There was no casualties. Everything was fine except my stuff,
your books,
my books.
You kept because it looked like
I lost a full case of books. I lost a full case of books, which the value of that was I did this sort of appraisal in my head. Retail value of the loss was probably between $600 and $800.
Right.
It's a significant loss. Yeah. And when you print books, you have to print when you if I want to print book 3, it costs like $15,000 to go. You can't just print 10 books.
No, I know.
You got to print this massive load. So every book is key. And so anyways, Bill was filming this PBS and he calls me up as I'm I got rubber gloves on. I'm throwing, there's asbestos or something that fell out of the ceiling. I'm cleaning all this garbage.
Yeah, I could tell the footage. I'm like, hey, he looks like he's cleaning up a flood.
Yeah, I was throwing books away. I was throwing them in boxes. Everything was wet, trying to salvage whatever I could. And I was just kind of miserable. And Bill calls me up and he's like, hey man, are you at your job? Are you at the store right now? And I said, I want to get some footage. And I said, you know what? It might actually be kind of a cool moment because it shows the reality of being a bookseller. It's because a lot of times people, they see author, oh, congratulations on being an author. I'm like, dude, the author part was the easy, fun part. The selling of the books is the much more difficult part.
Because this is what you do. You sell your book.
Yeah, this is my full-time thing.
It's not like you're, an accountant or a computer repairman
No, this is what I do.
You're an author and you sell your book.
Yeah, so I'm the author / publisher. The publisher is the part where you sell the book.
Right.
A lot of people go, oh my God, you're published. Basically all publishing means is that you're making your product available for sale.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That's really all it means. And so so the author part, that's the fun. You're sitting there, listening to music and typing and writing the next great American masterpiece. Oh God, I'm so inspired.
So I think that's
great. And then, then the real, that's why I was so happy that this part, because Bill came in there. I told him, I said, yo, I'm cleaning up these books. It might be kind of a good little angle to show what the reality of the book business is. It's not as simple as just living in the clouds and going, oh, I publish books and write books and I'm good at, like I say, published a great American masterpiece. The reality is much different, which is slogging through, throwing away wet books and the brutality of it. And so
not everybody gets it. It's more people are getting it now because the culture is shifting towards the gig economy and entrepreneurship, right? And 10 years ago, 15 years ago, entrepreneurs were an eclectic breed. It's becoming the gig economy now. People are more mercenary now than ever before.
I've been mercenary for 10 years.
So, but I think that's why I connect, because I mean that's like my DJ stuff has just always been this mercenary thing, and it's I think that's
it was like I said, it's but that segment was so great because what I told Bill was I said this might be a great little sure, come on and take a look at the store, but it might be kind of cool to see but kind of like it might be nice a little cut to show me like throwing out these books.
Yeah.
Like this is Charles's, the reality. Is a little reality besides the highfalutin. Charles does this. This is the reality of some of it. And so I also told him, I said, I'm about to throw out like $600 worth of books, right? So if these books like make it on camera and kind of convey this little moment where it shows, it makes it on the film.
Sure.
And then it really wasn't necessarily a waste. At least they got something. At least they had some purpose.
I saw that they were cooked.
Yeah, they were cooked.
Do you need me to start a GoFundMe for you?
No. We're good. But what I'm saying, I just thought it was kind of interesting because I'm like, 1 second ago, they were a total loss. They were a total loss. They were printed. They never served any function. Nobody got to read them.
Well, now they're cool B-roll
but now they're B-roll in a film. So I'm like, so I was like, so they actually had a little bit of a purpose. They served some purpose. So it made me feel a lot better about the value of
all right. So scroll down to the description wherever you're at in YouTube or in
Facebook,
the audio, wherever you're listening to the fine audio, Spotify, Apple
go
Music.
to the audio.
And there'll be a link there for the PBS thing. You can see Charles throwing away books.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I just love that segment because, like I say, I just loved it because those poor books, they wanted to serve their purpose, but they were destroyed.
They really did.
But they served something. They actually did get seen before they were thrown out. So they actually did. There was a moment of glory for those before they met their demise. So
all right, we prattled on long enough. We're gonna do it again.
You prattled on long enough.
I know we were wrapping up, and I started.
We get distracted, Jamie.
I know it's fun, man.
Yeah, we're good. The viewers are still hanging in there with us. They we're gonna step out of this building, and there's gonna be people going, "Oh my God, Jamie!"
So right. Like, subscribe, follow, leave a comment. We appreciate your time, Charles. I appreciate all the work.
Appreciate you, Jamie, man. Love doing the show with you, man.
And we'll see you guys next time.